Stop forcing concentration. It is making it anxiety worse. An individual on Reddit asked, or explained, I had anxiety. I thought I would practice meditation, but it's making it worse. And then they made the very common fatal flaw. That is, they jumped from problem to hypothesis to story. This is very, very common. The problem with this is that once we start telling ourselves a story about why our hypothesis is correct, about the cause of a problem, we tend to grab onto that hypothesis tightly, rigidly, with white knuckle intensity. And that is the death of creative problem solving. So one of the first goals is to let go of story and hypothesis. When we notice a problem, the solutions that pop to mind might be the cause, but not necessarily. So we have to be flexible. So we're going to explore two reasons this could be the case. The first reason is confusing concentration with mindfulness. So to explain that, I'm going to jump ahead a few pages to share some visual aids with you. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, including meditation authors or meditation teachers. What could that suckiness look like? It could look a lot like Yang's religious patriarchy. And by the way, I apologize if I sometimes slur. I have brain damage. So let's move forward. So a good thumbnail sketch of the symptoms of religious patriarchy, and this applies even to atheists, is being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Even an atheist can be superstitious about pet theories or about the way the world works. So it applies to everyone. And so these rigid people tell us to be rigid, and they tell us to be practice concentration. But what is concentration? Concentration is saying I'm going to focus on this one thing, and everything else kind of fuck all the way off to the top of fuck off mountain. And so what happens is that the only way to practice concentration or contemplation, to practice focus or analysis or both, to rely on specific neural pathways, such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And if you're watching this as a neuroscientist, I apologize for the primitive nature of these drawings. I'm trying to find the balance between specificity and generality. Don't want to completely overwhelm people. Let's move on. So what happens is when we use concentration or we use analysis or both, we exhaust our prefrontal cortex. And what happens next is this has been verified on fMRI studies that our amygdala gets activated. Now, our amygdala is the seat of anxiety and aggression. So imagine this. You've got anxiety. Someone tells you to go concentrate. You concentrate. It triggers our survival mechanism of our amygdala, and our anxiety is multiplied. This is not because we're a bad person. This is not because we are cowards. This is not because we are stupid. This is how we evolved. Our amygdala responds to fatigue because there was a time when the likelihood of our survival was inversely proportional to our fatigue. The more fatigued we were, the more likely we were to fall or be eaten, to be injured or eaten. So this is hardwired into us. It's not a moral indictment, but it is a pain in the ass, but not in the fun, tingly way. Is there a solution to this? Yes. Yes, there is. Because although, myself included, most of us were born into cultures that indoctrinated us into this type of worldview, we can crawl our way out. Like the third Batman movie, where after his back injury is healed, he has to crawl out of that pit prison. We can do that. We can crawl out of rigidity into flexibility. We can crawl out of fear into love. We can crawl out of superstition into rationality. We can crawl out of our controlling tendencies into being laid back. We can go from being the Big Lebowski to the dude. We can exchange elitism for egalitarianism. Instead of being cryptic, we could be lucid. Instead of being competitive, we can be cooperative. Instead of being cruel, we could be kind. Cool! How do we get there from here? Simple. It begins with being laid back and flexible. And luckily, we already have wetware. We already have facets of our, what's it called? Of our central nervous system that are already wired for this. You see, every time we breathe in, we are already wired to automatically access our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. Doing so helps us to notice in a very special way, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, which, as you can tell, is the opposite of the rigidity and controllingness of concentration. But what do we do with that which we notice? Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, evolution has already wired us to automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is divided between the lower third and the upper third of the same spinal cord. Oh, look at that. It's not quite on the screen. Well, that sucks, doesn't it? Well, let me see if I can't fix that bad boy. Okay, let's see. Let's hit transform and center horizontally. Now let's go over to the webcam and adjust that bad boy. Okay, well, thank you for your patience. So every time we exhale, we are wired to access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is already wired to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. Does that make the anxiety just vanish? No. But it helps us to let go of our resistance. And that helps us to make peace with whatever comes up. Anxiety, peace, and all points in between. Now, let's move forward in our text. So, one of the cool things about cooperating with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is that it tends to calm the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala, which is splendid, but that is not all it does. It also stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, the hunk of meat in our brain that functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, the root of compassion and love. This is why the late Tulku Thondup insisted that the highest love was not the analog of love arrived at by concentration or analysis, but rather the highest love was the spontaneous and uncontrived byproduct of mindfulness and meditation. But I promised you there were two reasons. So the first thing is confusing concentration with mindfulness. And now the second problem is this: repression. Repression can be a form of denial. If I close my eyes and shut my ears, and lie to myself, I can lie myself out of anxiety. This is very, very popular amongst, once again, fundamentalistic worldviews. Being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. I know I fell into this trap for many years. The opposite of repression is to notice things vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, which we are already wired to do during each inhalation, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system. So, what's the conclusion? Am I going to lie to you and promise you a pie in the sky and tell you that if you meditate for 30 seconds, you'll never have anxiety ever again? No. You see, there's this myth that we can pick and choose our emotions, but that's just our controlling tendencies. I don't know about you, but although I've seen many Buddhist statues, I've never seen one depicted holding a hacksaw and an ice cream scoop, inferring that meditation was going to lobotomize ourselves from all painful emotions. I've never seen that at all. How about you? There is an idea of a gilded cage, that we can only be peaceful if everything is just so. If all of our physical and emotional needs are met perfectly. That's not what the Buddha offered us. Buddha offered us freedom from the tyranny of painting ourselves into a corner, from the tyranny of gilded cages, from the tyranny of our fear of rage, from the tyranny of our fear of fear. The Buddha offers us the ability to notice the filthy McNasties that writhe like worms in the mud, and yet make peace with them. The liberation the Buddha offers us is not liberation from the presence of fear, but liberation from its tyranny. It's still there. It's part of the Greek chorus that is our brain, but it's no longer pulling the marionette strings of our choices and our utterances and our deeds. Having concluded the opening lesson of this morning's live stream, let's shift gears. It is General Leia Organa Saturday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the renegade Lama, Jigme Gyatso, of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Now let us turn our attention to the latest iteration of our very easy meditation practice text, or sadhana, if you're nasty. Together, let us relaxingly recite. Whatever comes, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Whatever stays, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Whatever goes, may all beings notice, relax, and flow. Welcome to the first quarter of this morning's group meditation. Upon the tip of our left ring finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the navel region of our mid-abdomen. Let us review the mechanics of mindfulness. Every time we inhale, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. What are we to do with that which we notice? We meditate. You see, every time we exhale, thanks to our parasympathetic nervous system, we are wired to both physically relax and mentally release. Well, that being the case, the question remains, what is the most efficient way for us to cooperate with these natural processes? Simple. During each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. During each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb, ease. Now, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Do not make the mistake of waiting to the end of the practice, because by that point my brain would have transformed into a bowl of tapioca. So together as a team, let us practice right now. Welcome to the second quarter of this morning's group meditation. Upon the tip of our left index finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the crown region of our head. What are the mechanics of mindfulness? Every time we inhale, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception. You know, sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. What are we to do with all that which we noticed? We meditate. You see, every time we exhale, thanks to our parasympathetic nervous system, we are already wired for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. That being the case, what is the most efficient way for us to cooperate with these physiological mechanisms? Simple. All we gotta do is silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation, as well as silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. Together, let us practice right now. Welcome to the third quarter of this morning's group meditation. Upon the tip of our left middle finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger, palms up, in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the heart region of our chest. Let us take a moment to review the mechanics of mindfulness. Every time we inhale, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice all manner of phenomena. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. What are we to do with that which we have noticed? Why, we meditate upon them. You see, every time we exhale, due to our parasympathetic nervous system, we are wired to both physically relax as well as mentally release. How then? What is the best method, the easiest method for us to fully cooperate with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems? Simple. During each inhalation, we can silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and during each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb is. Now, if at any point you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation or philosophy, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. Together as a team, let us practice right now. Welcome to the final quarter of this morning's group meditation. Upon the tip of our left ring finger, we could rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger, palms up in our lap. Doing so could gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to automatically coalesce at the navel region of our mid-abdomen. Every time we inhale, thanks to our sympathetic nervous system, we are wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice dualities, such as lack and boon, pain and bliss, scorn and praise, shame and fame. Question remains, what are we to do with these dualities that we notice? Simple. During each exhalation, we are already wired, thanks to our parasympathetic nervous system, for both physical relaxation as well as mental release. What is the most efficient way we can cooperate with both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems? Simple. During each inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, and during each exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb, ease. Together as a team, let's practice. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately, whoops, look at that. That's weird, isn't it? In approximately 10 3/4 hours, or 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.